Creating a quiz with a question bank, it's a few steps. So I want to start in the middle just to show why creating it with a question bank is probably the way most people would want to do it. So I just created a small quiz here. To create quizzes, you can add an activity or resource. This one's blank. I'm just going to go in. This one I called it final exam. So there's no questions have been added yet. And so most people, when they start a quiz, they'll come in and they'll hit add a question. And there's the add button. This is you only come in here to add the questions after you make the questions in a question bank. Now there's two ways to get to the question bank. You could go here. This takes you into the exams question bank, but we would rather see you go in through the course. So we'd go to the breadcrumbs here to go to the home page of the course. Click more, question bank. This opens a larger question bank of the entire course. So, and there's a drop down menu here with questions, categories, import and export. That'll be relevant later, but for the time being, categories is the most important thing first. Categories, when I click on it, you can see how I have created some categories here with some weekly quizzes. And here in brackets is the number of questions in each quiz. These are just, I stole these from another course just to put some questions in. Here's just an example of a bad way to make the category coming up there. Then down below, I created a category for midterm and final, subcategories, which once you create a category, you can actually insert them inside other categories. So I'd like to have multiple choice and specify that they're 1 point each. Essays specified that they're 10 points each. If I wanted a different point value for more questions, I'd make another category and call it essay 5 points each or 40 points each, whatever that would be. You don't want to have the different point structures inside of a category. And down here I have a final, and I have some questions in the actual multiple choice. In this category, you want way more questions than you're going to use, because if you have, the more questions you have, the more unique each quiz will become. Let me go back to the course page, and I'm going to go to the final exam that's blank. Add a question, since I already have some questions in the final exam category, and click add. So you can add a new question, but that's the problem. Some people will add a new question and create it inside the exam. I'll go over a little bit of why that's a bad idea. That ends up putting everything not in a category. So you'll have a jumbled mess of questions. So when you want to pull them over into another course, you're pulling them all over. Like you don't want to, if you just want to, I just want the questions from the midterm quiz, then you have to still pull all of them over because they're all going to be in one giant default category. So we're going to either, you can do it from the question bank and just specifically pick ones, or you can do random. This is the one I like, random question. And so here it's going to ask us for what category. So I'm going to pick the final exam, multiple choice, 1 point each. There's 100 of them there. How many do I want? Let's say this is going to be a fairly long exam and I'm going to have some essays. So let's put in 50 random multiple choice from the 100. So let's add those. Now we have 50, all worth 1 point each, all the way down to 50, and that's done. That part of the exam is complete. You can make other parts of the exam, like if I go down here now, I don't have any essay questions in the category, but you can add more underneath the 50 multiple choice, and I could pick from the essay, but I don't have any in there. If I did have some, I could pick, say, if I had 5 essay questions, maybe we just want 2 of them, 10 points each. Well, maybe we want 5 and there's 10 questions in there. And you would add that number, and then you're done. Like you created a quiz within 30 seconds with 100 questions in it, or 100 points of questions. So now when I go back to the quiz, I can preview it, and every time I start this, because there's 100 questions and it's pulling only 50 of them, it will have a unique start a new preview, start attempt, a unique question for any person that's writing. So if they went to ask someone else, what was question 1 answer? I mean, they have a different question, so it doesn't matter. So let's start another new preview. Anyone that goes in would have a totally unique exam from that. That's why we would do it in a question bank instead of creating the questions inside the exam. So now if I go back to the course, so now we're going back to the beginning. We sort of started near the end of what we had to do. Now we go to more, question bank. Again, I got to make my categories. Let's say you wanted some other essay questions that were worth 5 points each, maybe shorter answers, but they're still essays. Short answer and long answer, doesn't matter. It's still just an essay question. So let's create a category. So up here, it's add category. So parent category, we're going to make that the final exam. And we'd call it essay. You can even say short answer, it doesn't matter. It's nobody sees this except when you're creating the quiz. So only the instructors really see this part. And short answer, I should probably, short answer, 5 points each. And it's kind of, you want to keep a consistent naming strategy. So like that way it's a lot easier to find things. Okay, so when I go down here, there's the final. There's essay 10 points each, essay short answer 5 points each. And so you can then, since we have 0 questions in there, add your questions. There's different ways to do it. Like I was saying earlier, there's import. You can import questions. They have to be in a very specific format. The export will give you that format. If you had existing questions in another course, you could export them. Problem is, most people have no category set up, so they have to export everything, and then they run into problems when they go to import because they're importing everything. So we'll go back to, I'll go back to that short answer, 5 points each category. Create new question. And so you can create the question from here. All these questions are options. There's your essay question that you would put in. I want to make a distinction between multiple choice, which is the normal way to do it, and all or nothing multiple choice. This one is a little more difficult to have because by default, an all or nothing question might allow people to just to check every box and then they get the correct answer no matter what. You have to actually do something with the all or nothing question to make it worth 100% on the correct response. And then the ones that are not correct, you actually have to give negative values to them. But you can just skip that by just doing multiple choice. It's just because they put these in alphabetical order. This one shows up at the top, and a lot of people mistakenly take this one. So when you take that one and you have one correct answer, the other answers are at 0 value, but they can select all of them. So you could just go check, 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 check. They get a point, they get full value points for that. So make sure you pick multiple choice when you want multiple choice, not all or nothing. All or nothing, you have to go in and do a lot more diving. So here we're doing an essay though. So I'm going to go back and just talk about the essay for a minute. Short answer, 5 points. Question name. You want to make sure you name your questions, question 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and stuff like that. Maybe even you can go shorter. by just calling them Q1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That way, if you want to get deeper into things, you want to be able to find your question inside of a category and then what question it is. You want to say, well, I want to see question number 40 in this category. Then you'll be able to find question 40 by just looking for that Q40 or Q1. So like, and then you're going to say, what is Moodle? And then please explain in detail. Something like that. This is a quick question. Default mark is 5 points. That's what we wanted it at because that's what we have up here. So now we're going to go down here and just click Save Changes. And now we only have one question in there. See, here's why we needed that's the question name. And so they would all show up Q1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's a preview of the question. If I go back to a different category, let me go to the one that I had 103 in. I actually put it up. Here it is here. I had some different authors' names and I don't want to show their names. So I'm just going to open it over here and it's going to be cut off where you just see this part of it. And now you'll see this is kind of a mess because it has 133 questions in it. They're all over the place. There are instructions. There's no numbering system really to this. They seem to be kind of in order right now, but then we'll come down a little farther. Now there's no numbers. Now there's numbers again, B2, B3. This does not make sense. So it would be very difficult for somebody to tell you, I have a problem with my question like 1. There's 2 ones right there. And these are those all or nothing I was talking about. Here's 2 12s. So you can see how this becomes a mess if you don't name things properly. Name your categories properly and then name your questions properly. Call question 1 in that category and make sure that you're able to find them later when you have to either edit them or tell someone to go in and find it for you and fix it. Let me just look at an all or nothing. So here's an all or nothing. Edit question. Actually, yeah. So now I can just look at this. I'll bring this over. So there's shuffle the choices, number the choices. If you're not careful, see how this one has a correct, not correct, but like that just means those are 0 points. So you just have to be able to get those ones. It's very difficult to like all or nothing is very, very odd in how it works, but it is a good exercise if people want to use that one. But it can have issues with it as well. So usually use multiple choice. Let's go back to this. And again, let's go back here when we were in Question Bank. That's a drop-down menu here that has your categories and your questions. And so you can see how now everything's lined up. I'm going to make week 1 quiz from scratch and it'll be 10 questions. So let's go to the course page. And topic 1 will say, like, I know, like, let's just move that exam out of the way. So topic 1, we'll call that week 1. And I'm going to put a week 1 quiz in. Some people, I have all of my activities starred, the ones that I use the most. So a lot of people look at it this way, so they're looking through stuff. So you find your quiz in the alphabetical order. I star mine, and then I have a tab for start, and then I only have to look at a few things. Side note. Okay, so let's call this week 1 quiz. Timing, you may have a due date on it or close and open. And you might put a time limit on it. Let's put a time limit, 10 questions. Let's give them 2 minutes for each one, tops. Like that's a lot of time, especially for multiple choice. Grade will actually be factored in by the point structure of the questions, which should be 1 point each. down below. We'll just ignore the rest of it because the rest of it should be fine. Okay, now we have a quiz, but there's no questions in it. So let's click on it. Add questions. So now I hit the add button. Random. And we're going to go from week 1 quiz. We want that. So there's 20 questions. I want 10 of them. I think they're all multiple choice. I don't want to go through that, but I'm pretty sure they are. We'll find out pretty quick. There we go. 1 point each. So we got 10 and the maximum grade's 10 there anyway. And that's the quiz. Let's quickly take a look at the preview. Start attempt. And we have 10 questions. I'm just going to look at question 1 and question 10. And they look fine. And there's the timer because I put the timer on it. And if I start a new preview, question 1 is about something about circumstance. Start a new preview, start attempt. Which emotion? So totally different questions for like anybody that comes in, they're going to have a totally different set of questions. So now you can see top of the course page, more, question bank, drop down, categories, how valuable it is to make categories and your questions inside the categories. And you can see how put it in a midterm, multiple choice, essays, point value, like all 10 pointers go in one, all different pointers. I mean, like 5 points. If you had a 3-point one, you'd need another category just so you can keep them organized in that fashion. Then later, if you need this in another course, number 1, you can actually just import the course verbatim into another course. Import verbatim, as long as you can find your course. Or I come back into that more again, question bank. And remember I was up here and I said export. Maybe I just want to export with Moodle XML format. That's the one I'm going to use. There's the rest of them have relevance as well to other applications. And I'm going to pick only the final, all the final, which has the multiple choice in it, essay and essay. So it'll take that and have the two and the subcategories as well. So, and then I can just export that. So that should be fine. There they are. If I wanted to upload them again, import. I don't know, let's upload those into Moodle XML format. I can take them from my folder. Here, I'll show you my folder. It shows up like this. So I have my questions. I did one the other day as well. So I can just do this for all the final exam. And then where would I put it? I'll just hit import. It might ask me later where I want it. And I might have messed it up because maybe it's going to duplicate my categories. Let's see what happens. I've never done this part. Okay, so now I have the questions here, and I did number them so that I can find them. I don't put the numbers in the actual question when you create a question. You just have the numbers in the title box at the top. And there was like 100 and some. There they are. Oh, and I even had that extra one. That was the short answer one. Continue. So now let's go back and take a look at the categories. I might have a duplicate category. Yeah, I did have a duplicate category. So, but you can see how it brought them all in. Just slightly different order. I'm just going to shove that up. And it didn't pull over the essay 10 points because I didn't have any in it. So it didn't even bother pulling that over. So that's a lot of information about questions and question banks and categories. But it makes everything a lot easier if you have categories set up, because you can move things around. You can copy the questions and put them into another course. You can make unique exams by just having more than you need. Like if week 8 quiz and you only need a 20, everybody would have a different exam no matter how many students you had. So that's why it's important to use categories and before you do the actual exam itself. So that's in the question bank here. Organize this, and the rest of it becomes way easier later. Quiz, new. I'm just going to call it new, and I'll add questions. How fast I can add questions when I have a setup. Add. Random. And you can pick whatever you want. Week 2 quizzes, there's 13 in there, so we're going to just take 5 of them. Or 6. We'll take 6. There you go. And that quiz is done. I can add the rest of it, but there we go. 6 questions. And everyone else will have random ones as well. So question 1, one current hypothesis, start a new preview. There you go. They're totally different questions. So that's it about exams with question bank and categories. And I hope this helps get through something that's a little bit complex.